Thank you for joining NAA's daily micro webinar series. My name is Stephanie Anderson, and I am the Industry Operations Manager here at the National Apartment Association. If you are new to our series, thank you so much for joining us. If you've been with us on this journey, we do welcome you back and thank you for your continued support. In an effort to provide our membership with timely operational guidance amid COVID-19, we are producing daily updates in the form of micro webinars. Each day, we will focus on a different topic relevant to the apartment industry. At this time, I would like to direct your attention to the screen. Please take a moment to review our disclaimer. Once again, I'm so excited to welcome back our friend, the talented Paul Rhodes, National Safety and Maintenance Instructor for the National Apartment Association Education Institute. Today, Paul is here to speak about maintenance strategies and planning ahead as we prepare for the new normal of maintenance post-COVID-19. Paul, hello to you. Welcome back and thank you for being here.
Hey there, Stephanie. Thanks for having me back again. I'm honored to be able to share some ideas and thoughts, especially when trying to think ahead and look forward to what's going on. You know, one of the principles of maintenance is you can't really maintain something unless you know what situation it's in at this moment. So before we look ahead, let's look at what today's new normal is. I mean, as we're recording this, we're in mid-April right now. And who would have thought, even a month ago, that our amenities on our properties would be closed or have severely restricted access? Who would have thought that our offices would be closed and we would have appointments setting just for a conversation? We would have this thing called social distancing where we have to really think through everything that we go about in our normal lives. Who would have thought that we'd have faces covered while communicating, to where even our Surgeon General makes us look like out of the Wild West with a bandana on our face when we talk to people? We have to now question our residents through a door before we go in and enter their apartments. And not only that, the only time we're responding to any maintenance is if it's an emergency or at what's considered an essential type repair. Not only that, have you noticed that a lot of the parking spaces are completely full in our parking lots all day long? And all of these new normal occurrences were unthought of a month ago. Believe it or not, as we look ahead, we have to begin in the moment seeing what our current situation is. I had a conversation with Ray Hespen, who runs a company called Property Meld. They're a leading maintenance automation firm that what they do is they track digital data specific to maintenance information. And what you're seeing on your chart is an accumulation of over 200,000 rentals that includes apartments and single family homes. And in the top chart, what you can see is that the service requests that have actually been submitted for 2020, they're projecting based on data from last year. And the thing is, April's stats, based on the same apartments, you know, year over year, right now, they have about half as many service requests this year than what they had true to form last year. Now that in and of itself is a startling number, a startling figure, especially when we take into account our new normal right now. The fact that many of our residents are home during the day. Well, our buildings, when they were built and when they're designed, they have a certain number of operations that they can do in sequence. For instance, on a normal day, a light switch may get turned on and off 15, 20, 25 times. Well, that's on a normal weekday. How many more times is that light switch being turned now that our residents are home for a longer period of time with these stay in place orders? I mean, just based on that number alone, it requires us on our communities, when we manage and make decisions, we need to have a strategy. And that strategy that we come up with, keep in mind that perception matters. In other words, the way our residents view us. Let's take, for instance, if in your area, social distancing begins to relax in May. The news recently is reporting that there are some parts of our country that are expected to begin to return to normal. Well, if social distancing relaxes in May, one of the first things that's expected to happen is for a flood of those pending, even unreported service requests to start coming in. And that's not to mention the fact that summer is coming. Feels like a bad movie, or a good movie. Winter is coming under normal circumstances, being the headline. Well, now summer is coming. That means air conditioning seasons, elevated temperature, turn season, all of those things. Right now, the American culture is one that is of patience and acceptance of the situation. How understanding will our residents be once things return to normal? I mean, a minor service request. Maybe, for instance, our resident has been dealing for the past 3 weeks with a doorknob that's a little bit loose, that wiggles every time they go to move that door, open that door, or close that door. And it's a minor thing. It's not urgent. It's not an emergency. And yet, for the past 2 weeks, our resident has dealt with that. It's been that little niggling thing that for them, it's a bother. How much patience are our residents going to have once we begin going back to normal? The reason for beginning to think about things now before we hit the next change is so that we can begin to plan ahead. I think it's a great idea to start collecting service requests now. Make note of those items that residents may mention that in our social distancing of this moment, we don't handle right now. But make sure that we take that service request. Write down the information that's needed. And with that information, we can start doing some things to prepare. For instance, having all these service requests, we can begin making parts lists. We can order items that we know we're going to need. Do I have enough doorknobs to handle loose doorknobs or other items that we can have? Not only that, I can get involved with staging work orders. For instance, if I have a doorknob that is loose, do I have the strikes, the screws? Maybe I need a couple of hinge brackets as well. All of these things can be put into a bucket or a kit even before I'm able to begin to do that repair, but I can be ready for it. As a matter of fact, I can plan ahead from a time management standpoint. Take all the service requests that we've got on hand and sit down with your service manager or maintenance supervisor, someone who'll have an idea for how long it's going to take to do a standard service request. Add them all up. For instance, that doorknob's going to take 15 minutes. Fixing or replacing an aerator, maybe that takes 5 minutes. Replacing a receptacle that is not working, but it's not a danger. These are all items that are not emergency, but they do need to be addressed. And if we have listed all these service requests and the rough time that it's going to take to do them, we can add them together for a total time that it's going to take for these service requests. And that way we can come up with a plan of attack, how we can go about getting ready. I mean, if I've got a backlog of service requests that are going to equal 8 man hours in order to fix, well, that's 8 hours on top of the backlog that we're going to expect to see. How are we going to attack that? How are we going to plan for whatever the new normal looks like? Now, some things to think about when we begin coming up with this plan, this strategy. Are our residents going to begin to decrease being home during the day? What is the return to quote unquote normal of our business offices going to look like? And how are we going to address the changes for phone or computer communication? In other words, in our offices, do we need to make sure that we have our offices now set up for video calls, for virtual tours? What about our maintenance department? Do we have an area where our maintenance technicians can talk to or discuss items with our residents by video? You know, there are some assumptions we can make for this next new normal that we deal with. We can assume that cleanliness and sanitation will be more important for maintenance staff, not only for themselves personally, but also for the work that they do. Personal contact will be more quality over quantity. In other words, less face-to-face communication. And not only that, our amenities, once we go to a new normal, our amenities, we can expect a pent-up demand for residents to be using them. My guess is areas that are closed now, like our swimming pool areas, our weight rooms, our fitness areas, are going to be in high demand, at least right when they open back up. Playing catch up, we need to make sure we have an organized plan. Whatever your organization is, one suggested way is to go about taking care of service requests building by building and floor by floor. Now, I just recently had a conversation with Doug Chasik about fair housing issues. You know, the standard way of handling service requests is on a first come, first served basis, meaning that the oldest service request under the old normal, generally speaking, the oldest service request is the first one that maintenance goes and does. That may not be a good policy to have based upon the demand that we're going to see. The key here, especially for fair housing and for other concerns, is to have a standardized written policy and make sure your policy focuses on the what you're fixing, not who is getting the fix. And a part of that policy, a question to answer, should we include an inspection of every apartment that we go into? In other words, if I go into that apartment to fix that doorknob that we've been talking about, maybe at the same time I swing through and look underneath the sinks for common, for areas where there may be a leak. Maybe I check the temperature and pressure valve on the water heater, check the smoke detector to make sure that it's still good. Whatever the plan is, make sure that it is not secret. Make sure that everybody on our staff knows what that plan or that policy is, and have a communication issue for your residents. Let your residents know what this plan is so it's not a surprise. Oh, and by the way, maintenance technicians, it's a really good idea to just go into every single apartment and ask for the while you're here moments. In other words, how many times when you go into that resident's apartment do you hear from your resident that they say, oh, while you're here, would you do this? We've got to be ready for that. This new, or how many other news that we have with the normal, it's all about maintenance. And we want to maintain that resident. We want them to renew at the end of this so that everybody comes out on the other side, maintaining our community. Thank you very much for joining me for this time. If you do have questions, concerns, or comments, feel free to email us at the email address that's there. Thanks, Stephanie, for having me back.
Paul, it is always our pleasure. We greatly appreciate you once again sharing your amazing knowledge with our membership. I know that this is a topic that is going to be really, really instrumental as we move forward in the days, weeks, and months ahead. So thank you again. And to all of our members who have joined us today, we appreciate your time and we look forward to continuing to support you through this recent pandemic. As Paul mentioned, you can email us for more information on anything related to coronavirus. And we also invite you to visit our page at naahq.org for more information that's updated daily. Thank you all again for coming, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow for another great webinar. Have a wonderful day.